Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to a Wednesday night. It is the Earthmaster here on this end, about 9:37 p.m. California time, June 5th, 2024. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a one-pointer there in the California area, also a three-pointer coming in into Australia. Goodness, we've had a lot of deep activity here across the plate boundary in the last 24 hours. We'll check out the international activity here in just a little bit. Want to cover California, where there's still a little bit of ongoing movement here south of the border. It looks like it has died off slightly. Pretty decent earthquake swarm here of about 23 earthquakes or so, the largest one of 4.6 in this sequence of swarming. Far as any elevated swarming north of this area, really haven't seen it. We've seen a couple smaller quakes here throughout the area of the plate boundary. The San Andreas Fault also over here near the Los Angeles area. Newport Beach region seen a 2.6 earlier this afternoon, shaking things up out here. So various fault systems have seen a little bit of earthquake activity here recently. Sporadic earthquake activity along with elevated swarming in certain locations out here. So still keeping an eye on the Southern California area potentially for some larger movement. And of course, the best thing to do is to be prepared and make sure you have an earthquake plan. There are many helpful resources out here on the internet that provide a wealth of information into what needs to be done in order to prepare for the big one out here. A little bit of activity on the southern end here of the Sierra Nevada mountains near Bodfish 1.1. Really nothing major going on there for now. Up into the Northern California area, got a little bit of movement on the creeping segment here of the San Andreas Fault. The Bay Area, fairly quiet, not seeing anything on the Hayward Fault yet. Of course, this area has been a little active recently. Northern California, handful of smaller quakes here. Looks like these are from way last night and a little bit this morning. So let me check out the tremor map here and see what's going on, see if we got tremor going on today. Still got some activity stirring up here. Got about 497 epicenters of tremor. That's down at the southern end here of the Cascadia subduction zone. Been quite active all over the place here in terms of broader scale movement. Talking about tremor, elevated tremor, Northern California activity also swarming down south here. A lot of pressure out here against the west coast remains. The last week of tremor activity here puts us, it puts us over that 2,000 mark here in terms of epicenters. These are not earthquakes, but tremor counts being recorded by some very sensitive equipment that monitors. It's more or less like a vibrational frequency that's being picked up, and it's a slow slip event between the two plates here as one subducts underneath the other. And unlike an earthquake is going to be a sudden jolt and a release of energy, but these are more along the lines of a slow slip type of, I don't like to use quake because an earthquake is a sudden release, but tremor, that's why it's called tremor. And it's confined here to the southern end of the Cascadia. Even with this ongoing activity here today in the tremor count, we really haven't seen anything elevated in terms of earthquake activity here. But we'll continue to watch that. Mount St. Helens still seeing some earthquake activity up on the summit area. So let's go check out the volcano hazard site here. I want to look at a couple graphs for Mount St. Helens. I don't think they got their gas emission stations up yet, but hopefully soon, because that's kind of important in terms of monitoring what's going on below the surface, right? You got elevated volcanic gases. That could mean something's going on. Of course, we do have the earthquake activity, but no way to tell in terms of the gas emissions. So zooming in here to the area of interest right at the summit, a little bit of earthquake activity. These are going to be these spikes right here. And there's a handful of them, definitely a handful in the last 24 hours or so. No major increased swarming that would cause, a form of alertness as to what's going on here. Is Mount St. Helens getting ready? No, we're not at that point. Ways away from it for sure, if it even does go down that route. These volcanoes can see periodic swarms, and this volcano did see a swarm last year, roughly about July, August time frame, a couple months of some earthquake activity. So we'll continue to watch that, right? Yellowstone National Park up here, nothing going on here as far as the seismograph stations go. Looks about the same on these. Some wind events earlier there at Yellowstone. A lot of these stations are out in the elements in terms of what's being picked up. More than likely, the wind vibration, the vibration itself from the wind, is creating this type of noise on the stations here. And we see it a lot in the summer times. We see it in the winter time. We have ice quakes where ice builds up on the seismograph stations, and you can even see those showing up on the seismographs as well. But no earthquake activity. This is weather-related environmental noise. I've seen this, covered this 100 times here in the past 5 years or so. What do we got here? Salt Lake City area, a handful of smaller quakes up in this area. Texas, Oklahoma, same as always, earthquake country. Who would have thought? Tornado Alley and now earthquake country out there in the oil fields. That will continue and continue and will continue. 1.1 in the New Jersey area earlier this morning. Really nothing major going on there across the eastern coast. The big island of Hawaii, still looking at a pause. Now the USGS has downgraded the alert here from an orange watch to a yellow and advisory due to the extended pause there at Kilauea Volcano. Now they believe that the eruption will not resume. So let's read this activity summary here. The volcano obviously not erupting. The eruption that began on Monday within the park has been paused for about 48 hours and is unlikely to restart. Interesting, right? Even with all that elevated inflation going on there at the summit area. So what? Let's read this. Tremor, degassing, and incandescence associated with the fissure vents have decreased substantially over the past 48 hours, making it unlikely that the eruption will resume. That's a little odd, though, right? While decreasing, volcanic gas emissions at the eruption site remain well above background levels. Overall seismicity in the summit region, including the eruption area, remains low. Rates of inflationary ground deformation in the summit region increased over the past day. Well, yeah, because I don't think this is over. I'm not for sure who put out this article here. I don't think it's over by a long shot here. We only seen a small amount, very small volume being released from this elevated inflation. So maybe they're thinking that this is going to get displaced somewhere else in terms of this continued magma accumulation underneath the subsurface here. It's kind of interesting for sure. What do they got? 2 new webcams monitor this recent eruption. Let's see what they have here. I haven't even looked at this yet. There is all the volcanic gases, quite elevated, as they mentioned. And another one here. So we'll see. We'll see if this is over. I don't think it is. So let me check out the inflation data here real quick. See what's going on. Make sure I turn off the bells. Bells are off. We're recording. We are live. Inflation in the past 2 days. There's our eruption, right? A little bit of volume was released, but really it wasn't that big of a deal. If you look at the long-term models here, this was only about a week or two of inflation, because each period of inflation is larger than the time before, indicating further volume of magma into the area. And we're going back up here without a huge displacement of magma somewhere. So I don't think it's over. That's just my observation here. The graphs don't lie. Still quite elevated here on the yearly chart. Of course, the 5-year chart shows that we're still at the highest level seen since 2018. These are in meters. meters here as well in the last year. Earthquake activity around the region. Let's see what we got here. Not a whole lot. Small amount of earthquake activity, but the key to watching this is definitely going to be the inflation charts here. It's going up, so we'll watch this pretty closely. I don't believe we're done for a second. Might be a new fissure area opening up somewhere nearby, but we're definitely far from being over. All right, yeah, there's all that activity here in the Tonga region and the Fiji, Vanuatu area. We've seen a tremendous amount of deep earthquake activity out here. If you look on the globe, it's very visible. Let me bring this down just a tad bit because it looks like it was over the 24-hour threshold, which I like to keep. But either way, there's still a lot of activity, and it's on a broad scale, all the way from New Zealand northward into the Tonga Trench, and now we're getting a lot of deep activity here across other areas of the Pacific Plate. So watch for some big adjustment going on here very soon. All this deep activity obviously leading to higher stress levels at the surface regions, and that's when we see the bigger earthquakes start popping off out here due to all this elevated deep earthquake activity all over the place. Big time down here though. So keep an eye on the Pacific Plate here for some movement. Izu Trench here, that's a pretty deep one. 4.4, almost 500 kilometers deep. Now, this 4.9 looks like it occurred prior to the deep quake. But either way, this area is quite strained in itself. That region that's seen that earthquake swarm here recently near Taiwan, that's I don't think that's over yet either. That was an interesting swarm of activity that really didn't lead to anything. I mean, it started off, I guess, with a 7-pointer there and had a couple different aftershock sequences there, but it kind of came up out of the blue and then went away just like that, magically. But all this deeper activity, folks, definitely keep an eye on these on the Pacific Plate here. 3-pointer there in Australia. Let's see, Middle America Trench, 4.4 coming in right now. Looks like within the last hour. There's been a little bit of swarming going on here off the coast of, Costa Rica, a little bit further down south here. Looks like that swarm has halted. But we're still seeing some activity here in the Middle America Trench in the last hour, 35 kilometers deep for that quake. South America region got some fours going on here, but really nothing major. Typical movement along a major subduction zone there. Middle America Trench, or the, how do we bring up the Middle America Trench over here across the Mediterranean? Getting mixed in there. Normal, typical activity over here. Really no major swarms going on. The Campi Flegrei region, I don't think we've seen any elevated activity out there recently. I mean, at least far as in the last 24 hours. I know in the last few weeks or so they've seen some, obviously some earthquake activity out there, but let me go check it out and see what's going on here from the EMSC model. Now, I don't see any quakes showing up here in the last 24 hours. Last 2 weeks might show a little bit, but that doesn't even include that big swarm that they've had. So really, yeah, not a whole lot going on out there right now. But that swarming that they've seen and the land rising, very consistent with past events as well. It's a hot spot where the inflation takes place quite rapidly. But so far, nothing has come of it, which is good. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. Let me check out Iceland, see what's going on up here across the area. Nothing going on in our zones of interest. Some sporadic activity out here across the rift zones, but I think there's some Isn't there some hydrothermal plants out here? I was reading back here a little bit ago that there's some type of I'll have to look into it a little bit more. But just a little bit of earthquake activity right now. Really nothing major going on. And let's go check out the Live from Iceland site, see what's up at the surface areas here. Still got one decent crater here showing some fountaining, throwing out lava bombs. And it looks like that's the only one that remains active, but it does look like we're slowing down. We're slowing down the eruption. And 6-4, no new update here from the Icelandic Met Office. One remaining active crater. Recent data indicate that magma accumulation continues under the Svartsengi as before. So let's go check out the Svartsengi area, the inflation charts here, and see what's up. All right, so here's the upward displacement. Here's our most recent eruption. Notice the decline here. To me, this looks a little different. Maybe the last run or two here. I'll have to zoom in so you guys can see it. The last couple hourly run, or 4-hour runs show a little bit of uptrend, but the overall trend here shows downward. So I'm not for sure how that's similar to the last one, because the last one, obviously, we've seen inflation going on, which basically supplied the eruption with continued flow of magma from below, and that's why that eruption was just consistent for so long. This one here's a little bit different. You can check out the Grindavik area of Iceland there, and well, this one's about the same. It looks about the same. That little run, 8-hour run, showing a little bit of upward, but the overall trend, sharp decline. So this is just one of those things where we'll have to watch it on a longer term basis here, in weeks probably, to see what's going to take place in terms of if we're going to look at continued eruption like last time, or this is just going to fizzle out and be done with. Space weather activity, well, our old friend 3697 here, former sunspot 3664, is tired. It's very tired, it looks like. It's about ready to venture off here across the southwestern limb. This time, last time it was out here, it was throwing off X flares and multiple CMEs, and of course all that historic aurora activity last month. That's that same sunspot. It gave us a few more X flares, the best it could, and then it just looks like it's continuing to decline. But we'll watch that. Most of these other areas up here look fairly stable in terms of the notice that separation here in the cores. Same for up here. There's that a decent sized sunspot back here on the southeastern quadrant of the sun. Doesn't look like it's anything of impressiveness. A little bit of close proximity there of those magnetic colors there and that sunspot, but really not expecting much. 20% chance for an X flare, C flare at 99% chance, M flare at 60%, and we really haven't been blasting off too many large flares here recently because there's just not a whole lot going on. It does look like way over there on the eastern limb, that's where our current flare is coming from. A little bit of C flare activity right now. Notice this bright feature right here. That looks like it's north of this region. So look at the far side here of the sun. We'll see what we got. Yeah, okay, so it looks like that's from 3674, the companion sunspot up here north of this one that's coming around the eastern limb right now. This right here is where that C flare activity is coming from. This region, we don't have the a good view of the magnetic structure. That's a little bit more further out here, but we'll see it tomorrow probably and see how complex it is. But we get a little bit of C flare activity right now there from that region. Thunderstorm activity out here, just general thunderstorm activity, but I did see, even in these 2% days, these tornado days are no joke. Even on the 2% zones, they are. Well, this is for Thursday, the current day outlook. But they did see some tornado activity up here. Can't remember exactly where, but it was in the 2% zone, and it was about ready to hit a large city. I'm not for sure if it did any damage or not, but for Thursday, the threat's a lot lower. Still got a 2% out here. I wonder if... Yeah, this is for overnight. Early morning Thursday time frame. The day on Thursday. There's all that scattered thunderstorm activity out here with really no tornado threat, at least according to the Storm Prediction Center. Just maybe some wind and some hail out there scattered out and about. For the day on Friday, looks about the same. General thunderstorm activity out there. Really nothing of major concern that I can see. So we're kind of transitioning, I think, into a little different pattern here. Let me see what we got for the extended monsoonal moisture. Looks like it may start to come back a little bit. Look at that flow coming in from the Gulf. You guys see that? Got to start watching this, because these are some very hot temperatures out here in the Gulf and the Atlantic right now. Hurricane season could fire up like a wildfire, but that does show some type of development down there in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll have to keep an eye on that broader scale circulation, but it is pulling in a lot of moisture there, it looks like, as we head into the about the middle of June. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. All right, what else we got out here, folks? I think that's about it. It's hot today. It's still hot. I got about 82 degrees here at night, 10 o'clock at night. I know that's, if you're down south somewhere along the Gulf Coast, that moisture tends to keep the temperatures up. But it's just, it's hot out here right now in Northern California. I think we hit 107. Tomorrow's supposed to be about the same. 104 Chico area, 106 Willows, 104 up in Red Bluff, and so on. But yeah, but with this delta breeze coming in, that's supposed to cool us off, right? And it does as far as the temperature goes, but it also brings in a more moist environment from the ocean here, from the Pacific, and actually makes it kind of feel like areas down south. Maybe not quite as much, but it adds, any humidity and high dew points here do add to the feels like temperature, which makes it quite muggy out here. Sacramento Valley here, where I live, has its own little mini climate when we get this type of setup here. We got a lot of heat, right? A lot of daytime heating, but you get this delta breeze coming in here, and it adds a humidity, and with that heat and the dew points rise, and it just makes a very, not only that, but you got rice fields, thousands and thousands of acres of rice fields out here that adds to the humidity and dew points out here. So it's own little Gulf Coast environment out here. Although we don't have the warm ocean to jump in, such as down south there. Ours obviously cold. I've swam out here in the Pacific a couple times, and to me it's just too cold. I don't like it. I prefer the warmer water, which is quite warm down here. All right, what else? I think that's about it here, folks. Let me check the seismographs. Look pretty quiet. Nothing going on for now. We'll continue to keep an eye on things. Little spike there on the San Juan Bautista area. Trying to think which ones to keep on here. Barrett. Well, we'll just keep that up here for now. We'll continue to watch these other ones, though, and switch back if we need to. All right, have a good one, folks. Make sure you guys subscribe while you're out here watching the videos. We try to provide the best factual information we can out here from a geologist perspective. Try not to fearmonger. I'm here to report the data, here to report what I see. We've had swarms all over the place here recently. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to see a big one out here in California, but when you watch these little swarms accumulate time and time again, get closer here to the San Andreas Fault, in and around it, eventually one of these swarms could trigger the big one out here. So it's best to be prepared. It's not fear-mongering. It would be foolish of me to say, yeah, there's no threat whatsoever out here, folks. And well, you should enjoy your life, right? Enjoy every moment. But the best thing to do is to be prepared, but not complacent. Complacency is not good. Doesn't matter if you're out here in California, New York, Iceland. Anything can happen at any time. There's hazards all around us. I mean, I don't know. Anything could happen. So just got to be prepared and have an earthquake plan. Like I said, there's thousands of useful information here on, just do a quick Google search and you'll find what to do to be prepared for some earthquake activity. We've covered that a lot. Best thing to do, is to have a plan. Make that plan and share it with your family and friends. That way they know what's going on if an event such as a big one out here does happen. Can't be scared, right? That's the last thing you want to do. You want to be prepared. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later tomorrow, which is Thursday. One day closer to Friday. Woohoo! We'll catch you guys back out here in the morning. Have a good night, everyone.